Hey you guys, it's your girl Josh coming back to you from Real Takes. Today I'll be doing a review to Siren episode 9 titled Street Fight. And let me tell you, this was a great episode. Now, the ending of last episode 8, which was titled Being Human, you see Donna and two more mermaids, a male mermaid, which is the one that basically is the cause of so much sadness right now. He's the one that killed Captain Sean McClure, Xander's dad. And then you see a new female mermaid introduced. Don't know too much about her. And they basically wash up on shore. They come across three people who are, in the area doing. And then, of course, I like the scene where you see Donna size them up, looking at the clothes, and they're looking at them. And, of course, it shows them walking within Bristol Cove, and they're heading to find Ren. Now, from there, you see the scene where they're kind of going, and Donna's the leader on this one because she knows kind of the different locations, of course, where Maddie and Ben work, and then also where Helen. So, of course, the first place that they show up is Helen's place of business, and she sees Donna, and she's like, who are these two? Are they the ones? And she realizes that they're there to find Ren. And from there is the scene where you see the male mermaid kind of manhandles her, whichever. Now from there, Donna's like, please, Helen, help me, and that's when they end up leaving out. So they kind of are going around the town trying to locate Ren. So of course Helen reaches out to Ben to let him know what's going on, and that's when he lets Maddie and Ren know, oh, they want me back in the water. So of course they're like, you have to be careful because they're out looking for you. We don't know if they're going to try anything. So from there it shows of course, Maddie's with her father, Sheriff Bishop, whichever, and they're trying to figure out what to do with the situation because, of course, three people end up at the precinct and they're nude. Of course, they have them wrapped up in blankets or whatever, and they explain to them the situation. That's when they realize this must be the three, individuals. Of course, the sheriff and Maddie know that this are mermaids that have all of a sudden appeared because of course they make the statement of I don't think they can speak English, they stole our clothes, this they were nude, they thought they were at a nudist beach, and that's when all of a sudden two and two comes together. So basically this episode is about them trying to reach define Ren. Secondly, at any means necessary. They don't care if they have to fight, whichever. So, of course, Ren gets dressed, whichever. They have an idea where they will go. And, of course, it shows up that they're at Ben and Maddie's place of business. So when Ren shows up with Ben, he's like, okay, that's what you want to do. Do you want to go? And she's like, yes. She's like, I want the choice. And he's like, you get to choose. He said, but I think I should take my choice out of it and just do it. And he's like, no, you get to make this decision. What do you want? So when they show up, at first, her and Donna have that moment. She bows her head to each other and all that. And of course, at first they're kind of feeling her out, the new male and female mermaid. And at first she explains herself, whichever, but then it's like they don't want to hear it. That's when she realizes they're not here, to get me, they're here to kill. And that's when they realize they need to get out of there. And that's when Donna tries to say, if you try to hurt her, then you have to hurt me. And at first they're hesitant, but then the female one just like, she could care less. And the guy, it seems like he just goes along with it. You think that the female one is like the leader. And that's kind of how it starts. You see the little fight escalate, and of course he throws some sort of water, acid, or whatever on them, which gives them a chance to get Ren and Donna out of there. She gets hurt in the moment, and then that's when she uses some little aloe vera or something on her and explains Helen told her how to use this, whatever. And then they have a moment where it shows Ren and Ben and her explaining the situation when you do certain things like this. If you're on land too much, they consider you more human. You're kind of a threat. They don't feel like, if you're not going to come back now, then you shouldn't come back. And if not, they'll tie up loose ends by getting rid of them, whichever. They feel like you are, a danger to them because you start to have more of the human influence more so than, being the mermaid influence, which is how I gather that. So from there, you see the moment, him holding her hand and all that. And of course, it shows Donna kind of looking like, okay, because there have stories which she explains to, been about a situation where a baby years ago, happened. It was one of the, humans, Americans, whatever, fell for a mermaid, and supposedly a situation happened where the child was, born, had little issues, whichever, and supposedly, was killed, whichever, and he just feels bad, whatever. And she's like, no, these situations that had happened is the reason, that they do not, deal with humans, whatever, on land or whatever. So they're trying to protect their own kind. So I kind of like that you're getting more of a storyline from, the past. And like I always stated, I want to know more about Helen moving on. So you hopefully get to know more about her, going into either this episode or going into the finale. So I like that she kind of delves into more of that, because that was brought up early on in either the first or second episode when they were reading from the book, and they were showing some of the clips of Ben looking at the book and understanding, the stories that were told that they thought were just stories, not really just fables, which was nice. And from there, that's when you hear, and then of course there's a scene with Xander and his mother, and she's like, can you take this, back to Helen? He's like, I have things to do. And she says, I got things, there's a lot for me going on with me. And of course he was being a little selfish, and he realized, yes, your mom's dealing with a lot too, buddy. Something that did not have to happen. Personally, you being involved with that. So he kind of rectified that. He apologized. So he went to see Helen, and Helen, of course, is shaken a little bit. And Xander, unbeknownst to him, when she's telling him to be careful, watch yourself, and that's when he realizes, oh, they're here. So he comes across Ren, Donna, and them together over at his location. And he's like, where is it? Where is the mermaid? I want the mermaid that did this. And at first there hasn't, but then Ren's like, you know what? Let's take him to him. He's like, we'll help you, whichever. And he's like, okay, let's get this done. So that's when it shows Sheriff Bishop, he's out patrolling, trying to locate the female and male mermaid. He comes across them. They just do not care. They're smack in front of him. He hits the lights, and then, of course, they jump on this. He uses his gun to kind of scare them off, but they start running in different directions. The girl gets away, but he tries to get the guy, and he's able to get him. And there's a scene with him with the male mermaid in the back, and, of course, he lets Maddie know, and then, she gets in contact with Ben, tells him the situation. He's like, oh, what is going on? She's like, you're with Xander and Ren and Donna. He's like, Xander's out of control. Don't let him, get anywhere close or whatever. He's like, we're going to go find him. He's like, okay, well, we have the guy when Dad has him. So that's when Xander's like, well, I don't want the girl. I want the guy. And he's like, don't worry. They got him. He's not going anywhere. That didn't last long because, of course, Sheriff Bishop is taking him to the precinct. That mermaid decides he wants to do a lot of headbanging to cause an accident, and he uses that. By then, he's already out of the car. A Bishop has kind of had a concussion of sorts, whichever. Maddie shows up, tries to help her dad. By then, it shows them going back to Helen's place, grabs the spears. I don't know where Helen was at the moment, but she was nowhere to be found. They go in there because when they first initially met her, they were looking at all the stuff, so that's when they saw the spears. And then they use that. He kind of tries to hurt Sheriff Bishop, and of course tries to hurt Maddie, but Maddie gets a hold of the gun, whatever, and after her father gets hurt, whatever, and shoots him, and they kind of run away. And it kind of shows Ren going to a certain area near the docks of sorts, and then she does a little calling to them, in their signal, whatever, when she's, does some sort of, calling, whichever, which signals them to come to her. And Xander's just like, oh, I like the little scene between him and Ben, and he's like, this whole situation, this is nothing, this whole thing is weird. You about your mermaids, whatever, and all that. This whole thing, everything about it is weird. Look what we're doing. We're working with some mermaids to get another mermaid, whichever, and all that. Just like, whatever. He just kind of gropes on him about, the whole situation with Ben and him and his little mermaids, and just, being very sarcastic and whatever and all that, but who can blame him? He's dealing with a lot. He lost his dad, so Ben kind of just go with it because he's nothing he can't say. He was lying to Xander, and Xander really is not here for it. He just wants to get the one that killed his father and move on. So from there, he reaches out and explains that they're trying to, deal with the situation of getting them. And then eventually they do show up, whichever, but then they kind of get into a scuffle, fight. And that's the scene where you see between Ren and the new female mermaid, whichever and all, and she gets a couple licks in, but then Ren gets the upper hand on her, and she kind of stops her. She gives her this little arm thing, which stops her. She even gives her enough courtesy to pick her up, and she just lets her know, she's in charge, whatever. She's the dominant one. And she tells them both to go back. And at that moment, the other one tells the guy, he kind of stops what he's doing, but by then the whole situation kind of gets out of hand because they're eventually getting ready to leave and go back to the water and go, because she's letting them know, you don't have to stay here, make them think that we are dead and leave us alone. And that's when Xander shows up, and Ben's like, we got this, whatever. The sheriff, Maddie are there. He tries to shoot them, and then it ends up shooting Donna. And that's the sad part, because it's just like, oh no, I would have rather been one of them because I like Donna. So when it happens, it's just like, a really bad ripple effect, whatever. Sheriff Bishop has him down. They're dealing with Donna. They have that moment. So when they decide to take Donna so they can try to deal with her injuries, she lets them know, because they walk with her and they're like, go back. do not come back here. And of course, the girl and the guy, they do leave. And then it shows, her on the bed, and she's kind of having her moment where she is, hurt, the blood's, coming out. And, Alden Decker comes across the situation because he's kind of in the background. You don't really see him so much, but they just bring him in there because, he knows certain ways that could probably help her with the fact that they took some of her DNA, whatever, like do like a stem cell thing. So he's like, I can help. So of course they just push him off, whatever. But then when they realize, and Helen lets it be known, she's not getting any better, we need help. That's when Ben reaches out to him and lets him know, we need your help. So that's kind of basically the episode. And it was a good episode overall. I love the scene, with the fighting, whichever, the part with the sheriff being more involved in this, whichever, but knowing this is not good, we can't deal with this. And what are we going to explain to the people? They're going to think it's an opioid type of, situation. They're crazy, whatever, because that was their backup. If people want to understand what's going on with these two people out here, running amok, doing things to hurt people in Bristol Cove. So it was just an interesting episode and a sad one at the end, for Donna, because now she's hurt and injured, where she lived, whichever. And that's kind of what we're going to go into in season finale with her, seeing what's going to happen with her, the dynamic between, what's happening between Ben and Maddie, because you can see kind of like, a miscommunication. They're not on the same page. And normally when they make the decisions, it's together. And you can feel the tug with Ben, like he's not trying to listen to what Maddie's trying to do the right thing, let the authorities handle it, but he's just not here for it. He's kind of gone rogue. So we'll kind of see how that type of situation is going to deal with it going forward with them, because you can see that that's not something that Maddie's down for, and can only imagine what's going to happen to that relationship. So, but that was a good episode. I enjoy that. And the last one is episode 10 coming up, and I'm looking forward to it. So with that said, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you on the next one. You guys take care.